Hi, welcome to episode 2 of UAPA. In this episode, we are going to see how this edition came to India, who brought this edition concept to India, and what background this came to India. And in the end of this video, I will be mentioning about what the class 113 of the draft penal code meant, so which comprise a big paragraph. I will give those words in the description. I would suggest you to read it before watching this video, or in the end of the video you can pause it and read this yourself, because in the further videos we are going to be discussing a lot about these wordings used in this class 1 and 3, because here we are going to, in the further videos, we have to decode these wordings, because I believe these wordings plays a major role in this law, how they formed each words and what this means and how big the law comprises of, and the vagueness of this law also. So I would recommend you to read the description. Like I will give the class 1 and 3, and also you can Google and read about this class 1 and 3, what it means, so you might get a better understanding, because in further videos it will really help you to understand more, and maybe you can also help me in make me understand in case if I miss something out or if I misunderstand something. So welcome to the episode 2. Let's begin. Thank you. Year 1498, there was the year a Portuguese
1498.
explorer,
Portuguese
Vasco da Gama. He found the sea route to India and landed in Calicut. Why this sea route became an important discovery? Because during that time, for the Western European nation to trade with the East Indies, they have been using the land route, which then became a problem due to the Mediterranean conflict and the dominance of Turks in that region. So this sea route opened the doors for the Western European nations to do their trade. Around 31st December 1600, Queen Elizabeth granted a charter providing exclusive privilege and rights to trade with the East Indies for an association formed by merchants and traders. This association was called as the East India Company. Initially, when the East India Company was started, their main focus was towards the Southeast Asia and Malay. But in that region, Dutch dominance was high and the British couldn't compete with them. So they shifted their focus on India. So by 1613, they established their first trading post in Surat by the permission of the Mughal Emperor Jahangir. So this English trading post had agents called factors. Their responsibility was to sell the goods brought from the England to the local population and buy goods from the local population which will be sent back to England. So they were kind of the middleman, and they are being called as factors, which eventually led to the word factory later on. By 1623, the company established factories in Ahmedabad, Prague, Agra, and Masulipatam. In 1639, a place called Madrasapatnam drew the attention of the British due to the superior quality of cloth available for trade in that region. So they got the permission from the local rulers in that region, mainly to the Nayaks, and they started their fortification. And they named their fort after their patron Saint George of England. And by 1653, they elevated this region to Madras Presidency. This was the birth of Madras Presidency under the British rule. The Bombay Presidency. Earlier, the island of Bombay was under the control of Portuguese, and on 1665, Princess Catherine of Portuguese married Charles II of England, and for their wedding, the Portuguese gave the island to the British as a dowry. In 1668, King Charles II transferred the power of the island to the East India Company. During that time, that part was controlled from Surat, and in 1687, Bombay was elevated to the seat of presidency. In 1640, the British established their first factory in Bengal at Hooghly, and also by 1650, they established factories in Patna, Balsore, Dhaka. In 1698, they purchased the land from the Mughals in Bengal and got the permission for fortification and named the fort after the King William III. Eventually, in 1765, British established complete control over Bengal, Bihar, Awadh, and Orissa. Thus commenced the actual rise of the British political and military empire in India, and the East India Company started transferring from a trading corporation into a territorial and colonial force. In 1773, the British Parliament established its first judicial Supreme Court in Calcutta, which imposed judicial restrictions on the British employees and also the people who were living in the town and factories in the regions of Bengal and Bihar. During the same period, the Britishers increased their tax revenues and the higher amount of tax revenues and unfair trade practices. The natives initially thought they were paying taxes to the Mughals, but the Mughals made a deal with the British, and the amount the natives were paying were going to the Britishers. And whenever the Britishers were raising the tax, the natives or the Mughals were the one who were raising the tax. But in the case, the British were the one who were responsible for the rise of tax and the unfair trade practices. And this eventually led to the economic crisis in the region, and the Bengal saw the first great famine, which took the lives of 10 million people in that region. And these things were happening on the one side. And when we look about the judicial system practiced during the British trading practices, there were two set of laws for the British. When the Britishers were on the voyage, they had their martial law, and when they are on land, they were being subjected to common law or martial law when there is a dispute between the two Englishmen. If there is a dispute between an Englishman and a native person, the laws practiced in India were being used. In most cases, the natives didn't care much about their conflicts with the British. Whereas when it comes to the people living in India, they were subjected to the Mohammedan law in the case of criminal cases, for example, murder. Where in the case of civil cases, the Muslim people and the people following other religions, they were subjected to their own personal laws during that period. For the native inhabitants, the judicial tribunals were monitored by the native clerics, and these native clerics were appointed by the local rulers. So eventually the local rulers had the dominant power in giving out the punishments for the crimes committed in this region. So in many cases, they gave punishment according to their desires, and even they were giving away death punishments for various crimes. In 1819, James Mill applied for a position in the East India Company headquarters of India. And who is this James Mill? He was born in 1773 in Scotland. He worked 10 years to write a book about India. In those 10 years, he never visited India, and in 1817, he published a book about the history of British in India by not even visiting India even for once. So that kind of person, he applied for a position in the East India Company to work as an examiner at the headquarters in India. By 1821, he became the second assistant, and by 1823, became the assistant examiner, and in 1830, became the examiner of India correspondence. After becoming the examiner of India correspondence, Mill had the desire to bring about judicial reforms in India. He suggested that a new legislative council should be formed comprising of 4 members. 1. Who is well versed with the English law, and 2. Who was experienced servant of the company, and 3. One highly qualified native, and 4. One expert on government. And this legislative committee will be monitored by a person, and for that person he appointed Lord Thomas Babington Macaulay. In 1837, the draft penal code was completed, containing 26 chapters. Chapter 6 enumerated the act which would amount to offences against the state. In this case, the state refers to the government of the territories of East India Company, not the British Crown. And in that chapter, class 113 meant whoever by words, either spoken or intended to be read, or by signs, or by visible representation, attempts to excite feelings of disaffection to the government established by law in the territories of East India Company among any class of people who live under the government shall be punished with banishment for life or for any other term from the territories of East India Company, to which fine may be added, or with simple imprisonment for a term which may extend to 3 years, to which fine may be added, or with fine. Here they gave explanation saying such a disapprobation of the measures of the government as is compatible with this disposition to render obedience to the lawful authority of the government and to support the lawful authority of the government against unlawful attempts to subvert or resist that authority is not disaffection. Therefore, the making of comments on the measures of the government with the intention of exciting only this species of disapprobation is not an offence within the clause. It also clarified that an attack made on the public administration of the government of a presidency would not be seditious if it is made in good faith.